due to there was some confusion. I think in some station people ended up not voting. I'm informed of a situation where somebody tried his fingers, was told go wash your hands first. I mean, he went and went. He couldn't come back. So if there were such situations, that could contribute greatly. And if you meet some people coming back from there's that aspect, and it's really affected some people in some areas.
Okay, so there's that trickle effect. Okay,
yes,
we'll come back to that, but let's see what my colleague has for us on the smart board.
It's voter turnout, number of votes, registered voters versus the valid votes and casted votes. Anyway, that's what we're talking about here. But ideally, also, that's what we want to clearly look at what we have on our magic wall. And as I mentioned, and I'll keep telling you this over time, that these are not the final results. They are just specifically provincial results. And also why we are doing this is because IEBC gave that green light that also media can be able to do this particular exercise when it comes to tallying of the votes. So I just want to look at very quickly is pick on two counties. Remember that these votes are continuing to trickle in, so time by time they will keep changing over time. That's what we will be having here, and we will just be looking at two specific counties, at least for now. We look at Kakamega as well as Nakuru. But what you have there right now, this is the total number of registered voters, particularly for this election. We were looking at 22.1 million registered voters, and obviously this is an increase from what we had in 2017, whereby it was just slightly above 19 million. But so far, and key to note, so far, the votes casted as of now stand at 26,365. And again, you just have the four presidential candidates there: Deputy President William Ruto, Raila Odinga, Professor George Wajakoya, as well as David Mwaure. Those are also what we're looking at, and this again is in respect to the presidential vote there. So quickly to those counties that I've just talked about, and perhaps you can begin from we can begin with Nakuru, so to speak. And also, it's very important to know that we clearly also have counties of focus. They are very key counties that are being looked at in this particular election also, simply because of the number of votes that, or this particular counties have. We look at counties such as Nairobi, Kiambu, Nakuru also falls within, that particular list in terms of voters, a total of 1.05 million voters. That is what we're looking at in this particular county. And also, this is one of those counties that have been termed as battlegrounds. And just to particularly explain to our viewers what that's simply talking about counties whereby, for instance, a particular candidate enjoyed a certain kind of support, but due to the efforts and inroads made by another candidate, this might just sort of, so to speak, that candidate A could still be enjoying that particular kind of support, but because of those efforts, there are some votes that both of them are still trying to battle for, so that candidate B can at least get some votes in this county or net some votes in that particular county, whereas candidate A still maintains the lead, so to speak, or it could be, just 50-50, so to speak. So this county, amongst a host of other counties such as Bungoma, Trans Nzoia, Mombasa, in this particular election falls within the battlegrounds. So let's quickly look at how things have panned out so far in this particular county. And even just before we get there, what you're currently having is a DP, having a total of 15,980 votes, a total of 60.61%, and this is out of the cast votes as of now. That is what I'm just saying, as of now. Right next, after that, we have Raila Odinga, who has a total of 10,186, which amounts to 38.63%, followed by George Wajakoya of the Roots Party, who has a total of 136, which is 0.52%. And right there next, we have David Mwaure of the Agano Party, who has 63 votes, which is a total of 0.24%. So again, this is in respect to the cast votes as of now. So let's quickly go to that particular county, which is Nakuru County, and look at how things are looking like in this county. As I've said, this is one of those counties that is being looked as a battleground. And again, remember that also there's a constituency whereby elections has been postponed. That is the Rongai constituency in Nakuru County. And just earlier on today, there's a bit of chaos in this particular county the minute IEBC announced that that election for member of parliament wouldn't be taking place. And again, the reasons were the same when you look at the details that were presented there for for that particular candidate were not really tallying, just like what we saw in Pokot South, as well as Mombasa and equally Kakamega. So again, this is one of those things that we are looking at. But when you look at what we have right now in this particular map, like I said, again, results are continuing to trickle in. So obviously you'll have some places whereby there's still nothing yet in terms of. But look at this. This is Gilgil constituency. Just from what you're seeing here, we are clearly seeing the deputy president getting majority of the votes there. A total of what? 1,168, amounting to 58.05%, followed closely by Raila Odinga, who has 829, a total of 41.20. Now, clearly just this shows you what I was talking about earlier, saying that this is one of those counties that is being termed as battleground. But this is what we have so far in this particular county, that is Nakuru. So let's quickly go to Kakamega and see what we have there. That is also one of those counties that I'd want us to also quickly look at this particular moment. Let's just quickly go to Kakamega County, again one of those counties whereby elections has been postponed because of the same issues that were coming out there in terms of the details that were in that particular ballot paper. Kakamega County as well as Mombasa County falls in that list. But let's look at what we have so far in this particular county. At least we have elections from both Matungu constituency as well as Shinyalu constituencies. Now, when again you look at those areas that I was saying, key areas to watch in terms of also key counties to watch, Kakamega also falls within that list, because when you talk about the top 6 counties, the majority of voters, Kakamega falls in right close there with a total of 844,551 registered voters. And we have also seen in the previous 2 elections, 2013 as well as 2017, Raila Odinga has really enjoyed support in this county. So far, as of now, that is clearly also what we are seeing there, particularly when you look at, that constituency that is Matungu. Let's just quickly go over there and see what we have in this constituency. We are seeing him getting a total of 211 votes so far in respect to what we have, followed by William Ruto, who has a total of 42 votes in this constituency. That is Matungu, and David Mwaure having 2 votes. So far, George Wajakoya has no vote. That is in Matungu constituency. So let's just go to that other constituency, still in Kakamega County. Quickly look at that before we get back to Tom to just see what we have in that particular constituency. That is Shinyalu constituency. Again, Raila Odinga still enjoying the lead as of now. Again, it's very important for me to mention that as of now. That is 226 votes there, followed by William Ruto with 65, George Wajakoya 1 vote, and David Mwaure 0. Remember, as I said, this is that area where we have seen Raila Odinga enjoy massive support, and also it's one of those counties where we are seeing, those second-term governors. That is Wycliffe Oparanya. Again, also it's one of those contested areas, so to speak. Clearly, also in terms of just trying to see, the number of votes that candidates would get there. But Tom, before we get back to you, I'd just like to bring Gibson on this one very, very quickly, because we're talking about voter turnout and the number of votes. But before we get to that, Tom, what do you have?
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, the voice of the voter is now being heard, of course, and those numbers are coming in quite fast. Let's take our viewers to Machakos, where Dan Mwendwa is on assignment there. Dan, if you can hear me, what do you have for us so far?
Thank you so much, Tom Boya from the Broadcasting House. We are here in Machakos University, where already we are getting some of the provisional results from Machakos County. Remember, we have been here the whole day from morning till now, and we have been visiting different polling stations across the county. And as we speak now, some of the results have already started coming to our tallying centers. As we speak now, here in Machakos University, the Machakos University polling center, 294 voters took part in the presidential presidential elections, where Raila Odinga garnered 182 votes, followed by UDA candidate William Ruto, who had 108 votes. George Wajakoya and Wahiga Mwaure, they had 1 vote each. When we cross over to Vondeni Primary School in Masinga, we saw that Raila garnered 219 votes, followed by William Ruto with 23 votes. Wahiga Mwaure didn't get any vote, and George Wajakoya got 1 vote. When we cross over to Kadhiani Primary School, Raila Odinga leading with 224 votes, followed by William Ruto with 66 votes. Again, Wahiga Mwaure didn't get any vote, and George Wajakoya had 2 votes. We move over to Mutondoni Primary School, also in Kadhiani, where Raila garnered 310 votes. William Samoei Ruto got 80 votes, while Wahiga Mwaure had 2 votes, and George Wajakoya had 3 votes. When we cross over to Mutondoni Primary School, Raila had 300. William Ruto 81, and George Wajakoya, of course, had 3 votes. When we also cross over to Kisekini Primary School, also in Kadhiani, Raila Odinga had 159 votes, William Samoei Ruto had 41 votes, and George Wajakoya had 1 vote, while Wahiga Mwaure didn't get any vote over that place. We will be briefing you and updating you more as the results come in, and we shall be bringing them to you live. Back to you, Tom, in studio.
Many thanks indeed to Daniel Mwendwa. They are coming to us from Mombasa, burning the midnight oil because the vote counting is ongoing. Of course, the nation very anxious. And tonight our focus is primarily on how those numbers are trickling in. So let me take it back to Doreen Narangi. There was a point that you were making before Dan came in.
Yeah. Before we get there, let's just go back to Kakamega a bit and look at that last constituency before we get to do that comparison on how 2017 looked like in respect to what we have right now. And this is that area, that is Shinyalu constituency. So far, when it comes to Kakamega, we just have what is, in terms of votes, we have the Matungu constituency as well as the Shinyalu constituency. So let's just quickly look at what we have there so far. And that's what we have in terms of votes. Raila Odinga at 226, William Ruto 65, George Wajakoya 1, and David Mwaure still no votes in that particular constituency. As we have said, is that when you look at the voting patterns in 2013 as well as 2017, this is an area where we have seen Raila Odinga clearly enjoying support over time, and that's also clearly what we have. But Tom, before I get to do that comparison, I'd just like to pick from Gibson, to pick his mind on ideally these areas where elections have been postponed, and this is one of those areas, Kakamega County. And since we're in that beat of voter pattern, voter turnout, in respect to the day that IBC will say after that gazettement, how does this likely to look like in terms of voter turnout? Are we likely to see a drop, the same, an increase? What is your analysis and assessment on this one, Gibson? My prediction really is that of course it could change given that we are not there yet. The numbers will go low because, as expected in every by-election in Kenya, or in this situation which is similar to almost a by-election, because it's an election after an election, people will have moved on, since they will be like, given that an election will have to be done on a weekday, which people will be working, and people will be having various commitments, so the turnout will of course be low. Okay, well said. Now, let's look at the comparison just a bit. 2017 and 2022, because that is our benchmark in terms of also how the votes, are coming in. And again, remember, for one to be declared a president, then they clearly need to have the 50% plus one. That is the threshold. and also 25% in the 24 constituencies, just as it were when IEBC was clearing these aspirants to become candidates, and they were asking them to bring 2,000 signatures in at least 24 counties. The same is replicated when it comes to one being declared as a president, but now this is in terms of 25% in at least the 24 constituencies. So when you look at how the voting patterns look like in 2017, very quickly, look at how things look like. We had Uhuru Kenyatta obviously on the lead with 54.17%. Raila Odinga came in closely with 44.4%. That was a total of 6,820,598. So that county which we have just moved from focusing on, that is Kakamega County. Let's quickly look at how things panned out in 2017. Let's quickly go to that county, try and see how things look like in respect to what we have so far. This is how it looked like. Look at that, just showing you in the various constituencies that, you know, exist in this particular county. Raila Odinga clearly enjoyed a majority of the support there. That was in Kakamega County. As at that time, we had a total of 743,736 registered voters against, you know, the valid votes as of then, which was at 555,581. I mean, Tom, when you look at this is clearly an in respect to what we have now, because in 2022 we have slightly above 844,000 registered voters.
Yeah, 844. And in fact, if you look at even overall, at the national level, we have 22.1 million registered voters, as compared to the 19 million in 2017. And I just want to bring in Millie. Comparative analysis. We are seeing that the number of registered voters went up. What we are hearing from the candidates is that, you know, there's a low voter turnout. So it's a bit of a paradox, right? That we're saying there's a low voter turnout, and yet we have a higher number of registered voters. And my question to you is, how does that, given that trajectory where we are heading, how do you think it will affect the final results?
I think that is why we constantly talk about the apathy that Kenyans have towards voting, because when more of us are registering to become voters, but the percentage of those of us who turn out to vote is decreasing every time, then it is clear that less of us are interested in voting. So it's really is an issue of concern, because remember that in a democracy, you would like as much as possible for the leaders that you put into office to represent the will of the majority. In fact, when we wrote our current constitution in 2010, one of the things that we consciously dealt with as a nation was the issue of who should become president, and must they, because for many years we had a president leading when he actually had been getting the minority of the votes, so that you looked at the number of votes that were obtained by the opposition candidates, and there were more than the votes that were obtained by the then President Moi. So when we were then drafting the current constitution, one of the things we said is that's why we talk of the 50+1 and 25% in at least 24 counties, so that really, as you come in as president, it is clear that a good percentage of the country would like to have you as president. So it becomes clear that we are having leaders that less of us have put in office. And it's important for us to have that interest in who we put in office, because then we can hold them to account.
Do you get a sense that sometimes, you know, or let me put it this way, there are issues on one end of the spectrum, and then there are personalities on the other end of the spectrum?
True. Very true, because at the end of the day, we have very strong personalities in the people who come and present themselves for the seats that we have set. Take an example of course we are speaking about figures today, but take an example of Wajakoya. He has been a very big personality in this election. He came in and his presence has been felt very strongly. But whether the issues that he has brought to the table, whether the kind of conversation he has tried to steer the country into, whether it translates into voter turnout in the first place, whether it translates into a larger percentage of votes going into his docket or not, is something that we'll have to see.
Okay, you spoke of Wajakoya, and my colleague Doreen just broke down those numbers. I think if you look at overall so far what we have, and these are provisional as Doreen indicated.
Yes.
Wajakoya I think is at 0.5%.
Yes. And
David Mwaure is at 0.24%. Raila Odinga is at 38%, and Ruto is at 60%. I understand that we have our reporter Trevor there. I know he has been holding fort for us. He's in Kasarani. Trevor is at the Nairobi Tallying Center. Trevor, thank you for joining us. Tell us what you have for us.
A very good evening to you, Tom, in studio. Well, we are coming to you live from the Kasarani constituency tallying center here. A few moments ago, we were at the county tallying center, which is happening still right across this building, this premise where we are right now. And we are witnessing currently, as you can see behind me, nothing much is going on. This is the constituency tallying center. We're informed that currently the main business is going on at various polling stations where the votes are being counted currently. But as of now, this is the situation like. Nothing much is going on, but here I am privileged to be joined in by the constituency returning officer. His name is Amos Nyongesa. I'll kindly invite him to the set and ask him a few questions. Welcome very much, sir, Mr. Amos Nyongesa. It's good to have you. We're live on KBC. Kindly give us an update of what is going on here, and maybe what do we expect to be going on late in the evening.
Yeah, right now what's going on, we have tallying of those results in the polling stations. So we are waiting for the presiding officers to bring the results here anytime from now.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you can tell us how the day for you. We can see that the set is already ready, and you are waiting. Maybe in a few moments to come, you'll be very busy doing your tasks. Maybe you can tell us, what do we expect?
Yeah, at least the process was smooth. It was okay. And the technology worked, I can say, around 99.9%. We didn't have any major breakdown on our technology as such. But from the updates we received so far, by the close of polling today, around 57.9% people turned up for this particular election to vote for their preferred candidates.
And is that only here in Nairobi, or is it also across other parts of the country?
I can't talk about other country, but maybe this is a sample space of the other constituencies. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Maybe you could give us an overview of what do we expect to be happening later on here in the night, and maybe at what time do we expect to see the real action happening?
Like right now, the POs are already sending through the KIMs, they're sending the presidential results. They're scanning those forms, and then they send to the constituent tallying center, county, and the national. So far from my checking, around 135 POs have already sent presidential results. So we are expecting the remaining to be sent in the next 30 minutes. So what we are doing is, when the forms are sent, I validate them here, then they are also validated at the county, and then validated at the national level. That's just for checks and balances. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
maybe at what point do we expect to see now you done with the business and it goes back to the county tallying center, which is just right across this premise?
Yeah, the process of counting takes time. So maybe by the end of tomorrow, we shall be through with the counting. And then the DRO, the Deputy Returning Officer, will take results to the county. That's for women rep, senator, and the governor. While the returning officer takes the presidential results to Bomas, mm-hmm. to the national returning officer. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So far so good.
Yeah, so far so good.
All right, thank you very much, Amos Nyongesa. We'll definitely be keeping tabs with you, and you'll be telling us more and what is happening during the day. All right. Thank you. Now, I want to invite one of the election observers here from the Action Aid. His name is John. I want to engage him, and he'll be telling us more about their observations during the day. These are some of the people who are very critical at this particular moment, who are engaged in the observation of the election. Welcome very much to the set side. You're live on KBC Channel 1. Kindly start by introducing yourself and tell us what you have been doing during the day and what you're engaged in.
Thank you so much. My name is John Miano. I'm from Action Aid International. What I've been doing basically is just to move from one polling station to another, observing the status quo. And I can say so far so good in Kasarani. The day has been great. And the turnout, although it was not as expected, was also quite high, especially in the morning hours. Mm-hmm. Yes.
When you say that the turnout was not as expected, what exactly do you mean? What did you expect? And maybe what did you observe in the morning that you didn't see later on in the afternoon?
There were long queues in the morning, but then around 1 p.m., the queues started dropping off, and we were just expecting maybe 2-3 people coming at a go. So I can say that I felt like people did not come out as expected, maybe at an 80-90% level. But I think what happened in the morning also reflected that those who really wanted to vote woke up early and came to vote.
All right. And have you witnessed any maybe form of malpractice going on during the day or during your observation? And maybe you can tell us, what are some of the parts that you've been surveying and observing? Is it only in Nairobi, or is it only in this particular constituency?
For Action Aid International, we are observing in several counties, including coastal and Nyanza areas, Garissa, Embu, Isiolo, Laikipia. But specifically myself, I've been in Nairobi, and specifically I've been in Kasarani. I've been to Clay City, Ward, several polling stations. I haven't experienced any malpractices. The presiding officers have been very clear on their role, and they have been briefing their clerks very well. The agents and the observers also have been very well briefed. And maybe the only challenge that was there is the hanging of the Kiambu kit, which is, of course, technology. Sometimes it misbehaves. And I think she did great, or they did great, because I saw them briefing the teams, and we could wait for some minutes, and then the exercise would continue.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So far, so good?
So far, so good.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. That is John Miano talking to us about his observing. He's from Action Aid, who are some of the election observers who are engaged in this process. We also have others who are also in this premise. They are from the ELOG, the Election Observation Group, who are also just going around checking what is going on and whether the election is being conducted according to what is stipulated in the Constitution. For now, though, I want to hand it over back to you, Tom, in studio. We'll definitely be keeping tabs with what is going on. We are here. We are pitching tent here, and we'll be keeping vigil for the sake of our viewers. And one of the reasons, by the way, why you should be watching KBC is because we'll be bringing you all of this exclusively as soon as it happens, and we'll be coming to you later on in the evening to just brief you on what is going on. Back to you, Tom, in studio.
Thank you very much, Trevor Ngeno there, talking to both the presiding officer at the Kasarani Tallying Center and also an observer. We also do have an observer in studio, and I will be coming to you shortly to talk to us also about what factors you think influence low voter turnout, because you've had the experience of many elections across the globe. So you'll be sharing with us why you think.
I have been waiting for this question from you since like in 10 minutes. I have been waiting for it. I was just watching one observer. He was representing, I hope, Action Aid.
Yes.
He was saying, like, I was not expecting such number.
Yeah.
So he was expecting the name of the president in the future as well. This is against the norms of the election. He's not supposed to tell that.
Okay.
We are the one who gonna present our opinion. We are not going to say it was not expected.
Okay.
Did you get it?
All right.
So this is against it. Number one. Number two, This is democracy. In democracy, 50% plus 1 is the winner. There are so many countries around the world which has 50% plus turnout voter, voter turnout. So in democracy, it's an acceptable number, number one. Another factor, okay, there was something was expected more. Who was the one who expected? Whether there was the pre-election to find the number of the voter turnout, or was it just prediction? It might be the prediction.
Okay.
So this is the real number.
Yeah.
That number was not the real. That number was not tested with the people of Kenya.
Okay, and I'll come back to you because I noticed you feel
I'm going to add some point on it. Another thing, registered voter are the numbers who are registered as a voter.
Yeah.
But that number does not mean that they will vote on that particular day 100%.
Yeah, yeah.
That is another point.
Yeah.
Another thing, when we register the voter,
yeah,
after the registration, then only we announce the candidacy. Right?
Yeah.
Some of the voters, they don't like to vote it. That's the democracy. That's the human rights.
Yeah.
How we can use this term in order to spoil the politics of this Kenyan general election again.
Okay.
This is the sense that I'm feeling it. Because administrative-wise, IEBC, I have been to so many polling stations, but I cannot guarantee, I do not have, I do not have any observer sitting in the morning 5 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the evening on that particular polling station. I just go for 5 minutes, see, and take the name of the polling station. So I cannot tell the exact 100% what happened on that polling station.
What happened on that polling station?
Yes.
Okay.
So it is just about, the message I was, it's against the norms of the election. We are not supposed to expect who's going to win the presidency.
Yeah.
It's Kenyan. It's the Kenyan.
Who will
Kenya decided.
Absolutely. And
another. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry because whenever I see some irregularities in it, so I challenge to anybody, election observer, observation group, find some irregularities, then we can understand why we are bringing some irrelevant issue to make the upcoming president with lots of bad images or something like that. End of the day, we are not going to stay in Kenya. Kenyan people will have to face on it. We're going to take the plane and go by Kenya. So we are not supposed to interfere any kind of political observation.
Okay.
If they are happy to share their evidences of the irregularities, then we can discuss on it.
Okay, I understand. And you did mention something about being the observer of the observers. I wonder how that works.
This is you see, I'm quite aggressive on it as well. Because I was observing his observation.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And you're very passionate about.
He was not supposed to expect this much turnout.
Yeah.
I told you, registered voters are not the voters. I'm going to vote 100%. Can you show me that number? No, there is no number.
There is no number. So maybe he gave his opinion. And by the way, we also are bound by certain rules. That
and another thing is, a registered voter are the voters who are registered. COVID happened, and this is one of the developing country. And in my country, there are millions of people outside the countries as well. Sometimes I do not get opportunity to vote in my country as well. So we cannot use that word politically. This is against the code of conduct of my organization, that what I do in the election, to set the election, if they are trying to spoil other countries' election through politically.
Right. Okay, Millie Luanga, from a governance perspective, and he brings it out that, there are rules of engagement. We, the fourth estate, only project those numbers, but we cannot declare because that's not within our purview. But then there is the aspect of we are showing it, and the audiences are seeing the numbers. In fact, we are just updating and verifying our numbers, and I'll be handing over to Doreen shortly. But then there is also the aspect of, okay, we can see it. So there's that element of, are we hiding something that is already in plain sight?
That is why Doreen is doing an excellent job, because every time she comes up with the numbers, she keeps reminding people that, remember, these are provincial, these are not the real results, because there are very many factors that you have to take into account as you project the results. Remember that you're getting the results from your people who are coming from different polling stations. Someone may have, for example, it's been sent in the phone, you may have read a 7 as a 1, or you could have read a 1 as a 7. There could be those slight mistakes that could have been read. And that's why even Chebukati, the returning officer of the presidential election, has to wait and verify the information that will have been sent through the KIMS when the people present themselves, and when they confirm, when the information has been confirmed by the returning officers in all around the country. So that's why it becomes very important, because some of the information you could even have doubled. You know, you could send the same polling station twice. Because these are things being churned out very quickly, and when things are happening, mistakes could happen. That's why verification becomes key. But also for good governance, there is nothing as good as transparency. When you allow everyone to come with the information, and then we shall all interrogate it. Remember that even the 4 presidential candidates have got their agents at Bomas, who will look at those, will verify. They are also verifying with their own agents on the ground. So it's about checking and counter-checking and making sure that at the end of the day, the numbers you have on, you are all able to agree upon generally.
All right, and I'll be coming to Gibson Gisore to also tell us what he thinks about building that robust framework and having an auditing mechanism all the way to when Chebukati will be releasing those results finally. So, Doreen Narangi, what do you have for us now?
Changing, should I say minute by minute? Just what, in short, in under like 20 minutes ago, we were talking about 11,000, votes so far for William Ruto, but that's not quite the case right now. Remember that we have said, and we'll keep saying that all the time we're giving you this result, is that this is not the final result. So do not feel some type of way. Just be calm, cool your anxiety, because this is not yet the final result. These are just provincial results, and we keep updating them minute by minute as it comes. So far we are still on the 21 million registered voters. Those were the registered voters, particularly for this election. Right now we are standing at 59.54%. That is for William Ruto, a total of 21,398 votes so far, followed closely by Raila Odinga with 39.69%. That's a total of 14,264. Nothing was really changing much when it comes to Wajakoya, particularly in terms of percentage, because it still stands at 0.53%. Earlier, that was about 0.51%, if my memory serves me correct. That's around 190 votes so far. And then followed by the Agano Party leader, that is David Mwaure, with a total of 89 votes, which is 0.25%. And this is so far at exactly 8 minutes to 11. This is exactly what we have at this minute. But now, let's go to some... just looking at what also other counties are looking like. I remember also, much as we are looking at these results, bit by bit as they come, we shall also be doing comparison with 2017, and we shall stretch that further to 2013, because as Thomas mentioned, and as you're talking about, tonight, it's all about numbers, crunching them for you, trying to make them make sense, logic in a cogent way. That is what we are here for today. So let's just look at what we have in, let's start with Kiambu. Kiambu is also one of those counties to watch. This is actually county number 2 with highest number of voters. We are talking about a total of 1.2 million voters. That is what we are seeing in this particular elections. And so far, this are the results we have just for these 2 constituencies. That is Gatundu North and Gatundu South constituency. So that is what we currently have, at least as of now, in all these other constituencies that exist within Kiambu County. And obviously William Ruto is on the lead, going by what we are having there, a total of 4,397, which is 79%. But let's just pick on one of these constituencies and see. Let's pick on what? Let's pick on Gatundu South constituency. Let's look at that. This is also the home turf of President Uhuru Kenyatta, and earlier on today we saw him casting his ballot there. Looking at that, we are seeing William Ruto at 1,209 votes so far, Raila Odinga 467, George Wajakoya at 9, and David Maure at 5. Let's look at the other constituency that we have still within the same county, that is Gatundu North. William Ruto just netting majority of the votes there, a total of 3,102 votes. Raila coming in second at 661. Right next is George Wajakoya at 14 and David Maure at 13. Now, before we look at Nairobi, I'd just like to bring in our governance expert on this one, Millie, and let me just speak your mind on this one as well, and your perspective, so to speak. We are talking about Kiambu County with also a majority of the votes. In fact, in the list of 6 counties, it comes in second. And there's also been a lot of conversation in respect to, will the votes tilt to whom the president is supporting or to the deputy president? What is your perspective? I mean, it's all about numbers tonight. What do you make of all this?
And have the aspect of stronghold also in the back of your mind.
Exactly.
Yes, numbers don't lie. And we can see it's pretty telling. But I think that what people have been saying is that the last address by the president may have swayed people, because remember at one point we even had a by-election in Kiambu, and the president's party lost to UDA. And one of the things that most of the members of UDA kept harping upon was the fact that if the president cannot even secure a Jubilee ticket in a by-election in his own backyard, then how can he say he's still popular? So numbers don't lie, but I think that maybe it is not as bad, or the difference is not as much as Kenyans expected, given what we have been seeing in the last couple of months or weeks.
Will the swing vote have any impact on the final tally?
Definitely it will, because I think that if you look at the fact, if history is anything to go by, if you look at what we consider strongholds of the various presidential candidates, particularly the 2 front runners, and then you see the areas where they have traditionally been weak, if then these votes emerge, it will definitely impact the possibility of one moving higher than the other.
Millie, also, I mean, there's also been a lot of conversation with respect to, particularly looking at Kiambu County as a whole, the question of, the feel amongst the people that this administration has not really taken care of them so well as it were. Knowing, again, this is where the President Uhuru Kenyatta comes from. Might that sort of tilt the vote a certain way?
Definitely it could, because there's been a lot of talk in that region, led of course by politicians, in the course of building political mileage. Whether there's enough truth in it is something else, because we have seen the president display what he has done even in those regions at the end of his term. So it becomes very difficult to completely rely on what the politicians have been saying, knowing that most of it is also being said for political mileage. But, the more you repeat something, it is how advertising works, isn't it? The more you repeat something to somebody, the more they begin to believe it. So it is possible that they could have said it so often that the people within that region begin to believe that this is the truth, and they don't see it. And that's why some analysts have been saying that it is after the president has exited that people will realize he was actually so good to them in that region, and they will miss him. But it will be a wait and see.
I like the way she has navigated that without placing emphasis on the campaigns, which are over now.
Yes.
Or focus more on
numbers.
On the numbers, and also the anxiety levels for the voters.
Yes.
Because as Doreen says, there is a sense in which people are looking at the numbers that they have so far, and in the back of their minds, they are making conclusions. But Doreen is doing a good job reminding them that, hey, you know what? Not yet. Bado. Bado.
Wakwe pole.
Yeah, wakwe pole kidogo. I don't know whether I should ask Wakili a question before it slips my mind. There's this thing of the pronouncement by the courts the other day, that in the technology collapses, let's collapse back to the manual. How do you operationalize that? You're a wakili.
I think it's important that the key person is the voter, because that's the person we have to capture his intentions. And at the point that you're going to use technology to deny them voting, it's going to be very sad. I think that's what the courts were trying to say, that at no point should a Kenyan go to the polling station if he has done his civic duty of registering and he appears in a register of IBC, then you tell him, now you don't appear in the kits, you can't vote. That would be very sad, and that I think if somebody's kid can go actually to the courts and have the courts declare that his rights have been denied, because that is very fundamental. It's upon IBC to ensure that, provided somebody has done his because technology is not my business. My business is to vote. And if you have come up with some way of voting, then you better ensure it works. If it doesn't work, I shouldn't be disadvantaged. That is very key. And I think that the courts were very clear in that in the event, given that the manual register is actually a printout from the KIMS kit, then there shouldn't be any worry as to this person voting is voting from the wind or voting from outside. It's actually using an option, because technology fails at all times. It's not only in Kenya, it has failed even in the US, and people have resorted to counting the votes manually.
To the manual counting.
Yes, so
way,
that is very much expected.
If you look at the numbers, I think it was 200 KIM kits that did it out of a very negligible percentage. And my follow-up question would be, before I come to Kandel, is, I mean, look, we are seeing a Chebukati who is noticing problems and resolving them on the go. He's coming out and he's telling the country, you know what, this has happened, we have had stakeholder engagements, and the Venezuela saga has been rested and settled. And you see all the stakeholders coming out. So do you get a sense that that is also useful in building the confidence levels within the public?
That is very useful, Tom. I wouldn't expect anything less of Chebukati, because if you don't assuage people's fears in an election, in an election-charged country like Kenya, you're about to have problems. And in a sense, this is the wiser Chebukati, if I can say, because he has learned through the process. He has learned through the previous mistakes of various electoral commissions that Kenyans need updates at a time. Once a rumor has come up, come and clear it, so that people don't go again saying, you know, there was that thing which was said, maybe this is what is happening. You would have cleared it beforehand. And that is what he's trying to do, and telling Kenyans we're in control. And I think I respect the kind of Chebukati we have, because he has been leading from the front. As opposed to the last election, you could realize there was some confusion between him and Chiloba, who was in charge. And that ended up causing a lot of chaos and confusion. But this time, he's been well prepared in advance, detecting problems in advance, and actually giving a solution to them. Not waiting for the people to come and revolt and ask, why is this happening? And I think I like the way he's prepared, and the organization with the IBC is very okay. Sometime back here I said that this time IBC has invested in a communication team which is able to tell Kenyans that, you see, we're likely to have this problem, and this is what... He has even called the candidates and their agents and told them, this is what we're planning and this is what we expect from you. And that is very impressive of him.
That's very impressive. Do you think the Election Act of 2011 has dealt decisively with these issues of transparency, accountability?
Yes, to a greater extent it has, and also the aspect that they came up with the election regulations. That also, I think, Millie can agree that they have really played a key role. First, they also went and did proper training. I think this election, the backdrop of it, they've been doing a lot of training, talking to people who are the election stakeholders. So, and the other players have also come up, even with a book on an election manual. So with all these resources, you don't expect that things will be so bad, because Kenyans are becoming enlightened. I think you have heard from Deprak saying that he didn't see people miss voting, because even the election material you are going to vote, it's the same color as the box which you are going to put it in. So you can only, unless you are blind, is when you can actually have a red one being put in a blue one.
Or unless you're a man, colorblind.
Yes.
But Emily, do you agree? Do you agree with that last point you made?
Yes,
in terms of the Election Act for 2011?
I think that to a large extent it's been a try, but the truth of the matter is this, that there's been a total confusion in the law. And I say this because remember, even the amendments that Chebukati tried to put in place, they came in late because Bunge was unable to explain and pass those laws within time. And then when they were passed late, Kenyans, we are very diligent with going to the courts. We rushed to the courts, and the courts went and reversed some of those amendments that had been proposed in some of those laws. So that the legal framework has not been key. And remember that the confusion did not start now, because there were amendments that were put in the laws in 2017 after the botched presidential election, the first one that was overturned by the Supreme Court.
Yeah, the Muranga one.
Yes, the Muranga 1 decision. After the Muranga 1 decision, there were a number of amendments that were done to a number of laws, and they were done very quickly, and IEBC was caught flat-footed because they were unable to put in place systems and even train their agents quickly enough and give them enough information based on the new law. Now that law remained in place. When they tried to amend it to rectify it, it stayed in the National Assembly for a very long time until we were going to the elections. Remember that the focus then went to amending only the Political Parties Act, and that was because they wanted to create certain things like having a political party like Azimio that we have, so that it could produce a presidential candidate. So the legal framework has been weakened over time with all those amendments. And that has, of course, put IEBC in a little bit of an awkward situation. And I think that may have contributed to our seeing for the first time ever, as far as I can remember, elections being called off before elections.
Elections being called off?
Yes, because the elections were called off in 2 counties, gubernatorial, 2 constituencies. I heard of 1 ward, simply because of mistakes that you cannot understand. Many people were asking, is this the general election or are these party primaries? Because you do not expect that. We have never seen that, as far as I can remember.
As far as you can remember?
Unless death, death could have caused elections to be postponed. But we have never seen elections being postponed because we have not been able to clarify everything. And I cannot completely hold it against IEBC, because I also do appreciate that as a country, we put them in a tight spot with our delays.
And I'll tell you another delay that has been pointed out previously by IEBC is the issue of funding.
Funding, yes.
Funding is a very key parameter. And I want to bring in Kandel to tell us, because you're an observer, are those issues that you're concerned about? Because there is the institution that is charged with the responsibility of overseeing an election. But there are those issues of funding coming very late, so it affects planning. Are those things that you're likely to capture when you're doing your final report?
I cannot truly. I have signed the code of conduct on it, and I'm not supposed to touch on that department.
Can I hold that for you? That badge here, just give it to me. It's okay. I'll hold it for you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I'm not at this stage to. Sometimes I do analyze the politics, analyze the legal issues.
Not really the politics, because this is an open secret that within our framework, sometimes the money comes, yes, but it comes a bit late, and it's likely to affect. So as you reflect on that, let me bring in. Bring in Doreen, because I know you are bound by certain.
No.
You're yet to write your report.
I missed one point when I was explaining about the.
Okay. No, you can share it before we go to Doreen.
Because I'm an observer.
And a strong one.
I cannot. Kenya decides.
Kenya decides.
Well, it is very sensitive when you speak, and especially in front of the media, like somebody did in front of the media there. Yeah. If you allow me to take that video, I can talk to IEBC to cancel the accreditation right now.
Okay, okay. Now you made that point.
Number one.
You made that point, yeah.
Number two, here is the problem.
Yeah.
I enter the polling station.
Yes.
And I start talking like, why this turnout is low? It's already 3 o'clock. Why we are having only 20%? Why we are having only 30%? These are the messages which has been taken by the opposition who gonna lose the election. These are the points.
Yeah.
That's what the Pendro Candle initiative in this country or anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
It is very important to select the election observer. This is the point that has not been taken by IEBC, and this is the point that I have found. Okay. They have to take the interview, selecting the observers. And these days, I announced that my organization going to observe in Kenya. I received 149 applications, sir. I can give you the proof. I received 45 applications from Kenya, Nairobi. I did not take anybody because I cannot guarantee what they're gonna say for my organization.
Okay.
Did you get it? It is very sensitive.
Yeah, I get it.
And we cannot, IEBC next time, they don't give the accreditation just by seeing the documents on it.
Okay.
People are around the world, they are interested to go to the election, take the picture, hey, election, these are the things, they are spoiling it.
I get your point.
That's why I'm observing the observers.
Yeah, I get your point. And that information, I'm sure my bosses are watching, it will also get to the reporters.
And
so that we don't put a microphone
in front of the media, regarding the voter turnout, it is my department.
Okay.
Political ways, legal, that's a legal, this Kenya department. That's not my department. Yeah. But this is, I know, national media. This is the first time in Kenya that I'm in front of this media. It's an honorable opportunity for me, for my life. And these days media gonna take me up and up and up and up. I'm ready to do any kind of debate regarding voter turnout issues with anybody.
All right.
Not inside the Kenya, outside the Kenya as
outside the Kenya.
In front of the media.
All right, so that we can do a comparative analysis. And I thank you for just reminding us about that. Is the observer of the observers, Doreen Narangi, you had that, eh?
I had the opportunity to observe one of the observers that in the team. I was observing him.
Brilliant. Doreen, what do you have for us?
He's basically the lead of the leads.
Yeah, that's another way of looking at it.
He's the lead of the leads.
The lead of the leads, yeah.
Okay, let's come back to the provincial results that we have on our magic wall. Let's look at what has changed so far. We are still just tracking how results are trickling in, and this is specifically for the presidential candidates. We are seeing numbers are changing. As we say, this is changing clearly minute by minute. And that's why we are here to just keep you abreast with how things are looking like. And the minute it changes, we are here to again let you know how things are changing. But keep in mind, just from what you're having on the header there, this is basically provincial presidential results. And it is important for me to remind you to just keep your cool. Don't be anxious, just stay put. This is what you're having there. 22,937 is what we are currently seeing there with the Deputy President William Ruto. That is a total of about 58.92%, closely there followed by Raila Odinga at 15,701, a total of 40.33% there. Wajakoya still maintains the 0.5%. This is now 0.52%, which is 201 votes so far. And we have David Mwaure still there with 0.24%. That is 93 votes. But there's one thing I want us to look at very quickly. This is Nairobi County. When you look at the past two elections, and we'll just go over there to see how that panned out. In Nairobi County, to be specific, Raila Odinga, who was also our presidential candidate in those two previous elections, enjoyed support in Nairobi County. But so far, with what we currently have as of now, 13 minutes past 11 a.m., still looks like he's enjoying support there. That is a total of 3,945, which is 50.42%, followed very, very closely with the Deputy President William Ruto at 48.80%, which is a total of 3,818 votes there. But let's just look at some of those constituencies where votes have already come in, and whether this also is subject to change over time. And we are seeing majorly the blue color there, which is a clear representation of Raila Odinga. We are looking at Embakasi East constituency there, which is one of those areas where we are already seeing votes, as well as Raka constituencies. But let's just look at comparison in respect to what we have. Let's begin with 2017 in Nairobi County specifically. Raila Odinga netted 834,032, a total of 51%. He was followed closely by Uhuru Kenyatta, who had 48.49%. That was in 2017. Quickly, what was, or better still, how things looked in 2013. Still, Raila Odinga was on the lead with 49.42%, which was 691,156. This is in 2013 that we're also doing that comparison to just try and look at how things might tilt when it comes to 2022 general election. Uhuru Kenyatta also followed closely, as at that time, this was in 2013, with 659,490. That was 47.16%. So let's come to 2022. Clearly, again, from what you have, still Raila is on the lead, 3,945, 50.42%, followed closely by William Ruto, 3,818, 48.80%. But that's a very close, when you just look at the margins, it's really slightly above, 100, so to speak, at least as of now. But remember also, Nairobi is a key area to watch. Why? We are talking about 2.4 million voters. In fact, it is the county with the majority of voters, brings the country 60% of our GDP. It is the county to watch. Also, when you look at the companies, industries, majority of them are set in this county. And I just like also to bring Gibson on this one. The reason why I want to bring Gibson on this one is just I want to get his perspective, particularly when you look at the margins. This is very close. And in fact, earlier on, DP was on the lead, just about exactly 11, he was on the lead. And when you look again, particularly at the youth population, even in Nairobi County, are we likely to see something different in respect to how Nairobi vote might look like when you compare to 2013 and 2017? Again, knowing fully well that the gubernatorial candidate that is allied to the deputy president, we're talking of him as a young person. When you look at the gubernatorial candidate, coming from the Azimio faction, there was a lot of conversation with respect to him being a project. What are we likely to see in respect to this county? Gibson, what would you make of this?
I think, Doreen, I will want to agree with you, because the coming in of the candidate for Nairobi for UDA, that is Johnson Sakaja, has really tilted the scales towards Kenya Kwanza, as opposed to in the 2017 when Raila was leading. And I would want to predict that there is really some good work which has been done. There is really some good work which has been done by the Kenya Kwanza coalition in terms of Nairobi. And I think the numbers can tell. The numbers can tell that we are having a shift from it being Baba's bedroom. Now it's becoming a battleground for the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio frontiers, given that the DP has done some good work. The DP has done some good work in the ground, and he's been campaigning in Nairobi on and off. And that has got to be manifested in the numbers which we are seeing. And of course, the aspect of Sakaja being in place and the drama which was surrounding is a clearing also. To some extent, politics is politics. As long as I was saying here that some publicity For politicians, you might consider it to be bad, but it actually acts in their gain because it depends on how they use it. Okay. For example, you remember Sakaja saying, these are people fighting me. I'm still going to be in the race, and it's actually being in the race. So that gives people some confidence.
Perhaps before Doreen, you take it.
Yeah.
Let me take you out from the campaign into a very important demographic that Maureen talked about, the youth.
The youth, yes.
Right? These people are permanently on social media platforms. And if you go online, there are so many positive images that you're seeing, images that really warm your heart. But the converse is, we are also seeing some toxic online behavior. And I just want to throw this one to any one of you. How do we safeguard? How do we safeguard how do we end up with cyber hygiene, where we now have more of positive images and very little of negative images? The Pareto rule. I think the management gurus call it that way.
I think if you may start, I don't know when they will join or what. My perspective is, it's social media. It's called social media. It's a mirror of society. Yeah. That's the image of what society is thinking. People do not hide because they need to demonstrate, they need to express their views as they think, and they just have the phone there, they just have to put it across. Talking of bringing hygiene, now that's a different discussion, because now you can't separate what people think unless now you will want to start censoring. So the censoring aspect now will of course bring other aspects. We have other countries where people actually close the internet. We had a very big discussion around whether we are going to shut off the internet during election or not.
But I think the CS came and said, you know what, we're not touching it.
Yes, they did that because even the other CS for IT, for communication actually said, we don't have a framework for shutting down internet. And that was very positive. I really commend it.
By the way, what does it mean, shutting it down? Because we know there are some countries, and you'll tell us, there are some countries where they've actually blocked,
Tommy, could actually mean that we're in a dictatorship or we don't believe in our systems. Because we have laws. If somebody has done a crime in social media, you can actually prosecute him. So why shut it if you can actually use it to prosecute people who are doing on the wrong?
Let me ask you, can we look at what is the very latest on the presidential race? We have Form 34A.
Yes.
Remember, told that is where election will be lost or won. So you can see on your screen there, those are the reported Form 34As that have come in so far, and they're coming in quite fast. 34,312 out of the total 46,228. So that's 74% already.
Yes.
It's going very fast.
That's very positive.
But they have to be verified.
Yeah, they have to be verified.
For them to be declared.
Then they have to be verified. But they're coming in at a good rate, and that's a good thing, because then the possibilities of us having the verified results being released sooner rather than later is higher.
Assad said, and you see, this is system generated.
Exactly.
So they're actually giving us real time what is happening. IBC is sharing with us whatever it is that they have. And now the part which we have to wait is now the verification and then the declaration. Which is a very positive thing.
Which is positive. And all this because of technology.
Yes.
So why don't we just advance? It's technology.
My observation normally looks after the technological innovation as well. However, at the same time, it is very important to set the culture of election. What does that mean? We cast the vote on the paper. Some country is using the technology. But our country does not have that level of education. So non-educated voters not gonna use the technology and not gonna trust it. And that's why it is very important to set the election culture. And it is the people of Kenya and the government of Kenya and the Kenya gonna decide whether to use the electronic voting machine or paper ballot. I give you my own example. I went to Bangladesh. There was I was there to monitor the electronic voting, and they deployed that machine in six centers, and I was looking at it. 30 minutes they took for one to vote it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it has sweat on it, and you do like this. These are the problem we are having. Okay, We are having the problem, we can solve it. When you are going to solve it? On the day of the election? Can you delay the election? This is very important.
Very important.
And I went to Denmark.
Yeah.
I was expecting they're going to have everything of the technological innovation and everything on the remote. Okay, you can vote through the social media. That's fine. But we need to save our culture. We need to enjoy. We need to congratulate. We need to celebrate the election. This is the day of the country.
That's true.
This day gonna decide the future of Kenya.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
of course, I'm sitting in front of the journalists. It is the day for you.
Yeah.
Journalism starts from the politics. Yeah. And I went to Denmark. They were casting the vote. Paper ballot. Paper ballot. They didn't use technology.
They used paper?
Yes. And I said,
okay,
we like it, this is our... And how did they start? They take their children with them. Children is not supposed to watch where they are casting on it. They cast it, they fold it, and they give it to the child or children or the baby. And baby gonna drop in the ballot box. And why did you do that? Because that vote will set the future of my baby.
So they inculcate it very early.
Yeah, so it is Kenya and Kenyan people to decide whatever it is. Now, regarding the registered voters, I think it is my opportunity, and I have to make clear to the people of Kenya as well. Registered voters are the voters, they are registered. But they are not the voters who gonna vote 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, number one. Number two, there might be the chances I will not vote it.
Yeah.
I'm registered, but I will not vote it. If I like my candidate, I will vote it, otherwise I will not. So politically, madam, there might be the political analysis on this issue, why the people are not interested in this political day. There might be the economical analysis. I think the country is not economically going on that level, so people are frustrated, they are not interested to vote it. But we cannot touch that point and make to spoil the election, number one. Number two, prediction was 70%. Okay. Gentlemen took the point, and I would like to use that point on the reference as well. How did, there was the 70% turnout in the election in my country as well. I don't like to take that reference and use that reference as well. How did they predict it? Twitter. How can you imagine that the one who messages in the Twitter is in Kenya? Facebook. Can you imagine how many people are using the Facebook? There might be the hackers.
Yeah.
There might be the people who gonna spoil this election. Why? Because coming to this country, I got only one point on my mind. Okay, I have to go Kenya. Why? Kenya has sent the message to the political arena this day. Why? Because 2 terms president, Kenyatta, had changed the job. You go and find other countries around the world in this age who gonna leave the presidency, either change the constitution like in Russia. So Kenya has a send message to the world, the new politics gonna start in Kenya. So there might be the hackers, I can debate on it. Twitter, political campaign, YouTube, Facebook. So we cannot predict. That prediction was completely right. That prediction might be high so that you're gonna get the low turnout, then it can spoil the election end of the day. You predict something like, oh, my boy gonna get 90%. He's not gonna get 80%. I know, but I'm gonna say 90%. And he's gonna get 60%. Why did you get 30% difference? If I had said 80%, it would be 20%. So there might be the political actors behind it. So it is the people of Kenya who are gonna save Kenya. It is not we people. So this is, I'm alerting to the people of Kenya. Because end of the day, we are going to save our country by ourselves.
Yeah, that's true.
None of the country in the world they have made other people
in the world. Okay. Yeah. Let me Doreen, I need you on the smart board. If my director can display the presidential, the reported forms 34A again on the screen, we have 34,312 out of a total 46,229, and in terms of percentage, that is 74.22% from 34As in already. The time is 11:28, and just slightly under 25% remaining to go. Yeah, but I like the point that Kandal brought, that there's a way even the education system can speak to, having civic education. We did it in the olden days. It's incorporated in the curricula, so you learn about voting very early when the brain is being developed. So that's a good point you made. Are you familiar with M-Pesa? M-Pesa is a platform for sending and receiving money. It's a very safe way of here in Kenya, and it has won a lot of awards.
No. I'm in Kenya. Yeah, I've been to United States of America, and I'm very good with new innovative culture as well. Yeah. But I still prefer use my hand to eat it.
Oh, to eat. Okay, that's a good one.
The flavor.
That's a good. In Ghana, have you observed the Ghanaian election? I don't know whether it's in Ghana
Zimbabwe.
or where. Zimbabwe?
I did it in Zimbabwe.
Where they use marbles. And yeah, so it really strengthens your point of culture. It depends on the culture of the country. Let me bring in Doreen to just give us, tonight it's about numbers. Occasionally having a conversation. Doreen, what do you have?
And that's our business. I mean, it's all about numbers and numbers. We are crunching for you those numbers. But before we get to the numbers, I'd like to pick our lead observer's mind, and this particular issue, just still sticking on the aspect of the young people. When you look at the KNBS report over 2019 released in 2020, you're looking at 35.7 out of the 47.6 million Kenyans who form the youth or the young people. So in your observation, even in these elections, I mean, oftentimes we've talked about crowds for hire. We've talked about always the young people being vulnerable, particularly in this election, either when it comes to causing chaos or just a bit of push and pull. So what has been your observation when it comes to that, generally, in respect to young people?
And that question, you've directed it to who?
Our lead observer. In this
lead observer. So
observers.
What she's asking is, we for example, we did have a report called the Aga Khan report in 2016, and they interviewed the young people, right? And the summary was, for example, they were asked, do you want to get wealthy? And they said yes. And they were asked, does it matter how you become wealthy? And they said, getting wealthy at any cost. Okay. All right. So it's a sensitive demographic. You're not even almost sure how to handle it.
I have another reservation on it as well. We need to choose the sample. How many samples that you are using in it? Are you using the sample with the same kind of people at the same time, or are you mixing with every kind of people together? If you go to, like, I've been to this Kibera. I got this all 15 polling station sent by my office in Kathmandu, Nepal. They are operating remotely. They are checking all the security issues in Kenya, and they're like, you can go, there is no problem. And my driver says, that's a very risky area. I got the information, let's go. I wonder, without security and all, it's completely secured. Whatever you see on the media, sometimes it's not real. And whenever you choose the sample, if I go and choose that sample, they're going to say, I don't know president, I don't like president, I don't vote. So you're going to use that sample and you're going to bring and you're going to predict the whole country? No. I've been to 13 polling centers, more than 65 polling stations. I can confidently, I can tell you, none of the observer have done that so in this day. I woke up 4, everyone gonna say the same thing, but I had the complete schedule, so I did 65 plus polling station observation. But I did not stay more than 5 minutes in the station. So I cannot tell what happened after that, because I stayed just 5 minutes. I can tell what had happened on that particular time. So it's all about the sample.
Okay.
So you are observing 65 polling stations. That means you are predicting whole Kenya? No, I was within the Nairobi city county only.
Only.
How can you predict your you can say like, I have deployed this and this. Another important issue. I have observed 65 polling stations. I have not found even a single observing group who has the observer from morning to evening together on the same polling station. It is very important. You have to have the observer morning 5 to evening 5 on the same and get the data, everything. And you go out and you observe, oh, this is no, there was no people. When you go, there was fight. When you go out, there was not fight.
So you recommend that one observer stays at one polling station?
If they are deploying, we are thinking of doing such thing in this country. But telling you the truth, European Union, I think they are deploying and they are doing the observation in this country. European Union, but I cannot blame after that. When I was there, I didn't see anybody. 65 polling stations. Then how can they gonna write the report? Dipendra Kandel is here in Nairobi City today.
Okay. All right, I get you. Thanks for giving us the...
This is all about the sample. What you are going to take it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about...
What kind of sample on it?
Yeah.
Which city? So we cannot do it. Okay, United Nations, till date, they are thinking of taking the poverty out from the world.
Mm-hmm.
They have been doing so since 60 years. I know. Then why they have not taken that out till date? Why?
Okay.
Who is stopping United Nations to take the poverty out of the country?
Okay, we'll come back to that. Let me cross over. Just hold that thought.
Who is stopping them?
Hold that thought. Let's bring in Zainab Said, who's at Lunga.
I went to Kibera.
Yeah.
I went to Kibera, and they die.
Yeah.
They have the $1 per day.
Okay.
Kibera.
All right. You know, Kibera is the biggest slum in Africa.
I know. I went to Kibera on my own single.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No problem. You did well.
Because I came here for Kenya.
Okay. Thank you.
Why do I scare here in this country?
All right. That's the observer of the observer.
You have to observe. Observer, they're driving. Hey, come on, go.
Let's move away from Kibera and go to Lunga, where our reporter Zainab Said. Zainab is burning the midnight oil. Zainab, I need to see on the split screen where is Zainab, because I need her to tell us what's happening there. We have a dedicated team of reporters spread right across the country. There is Zainab burning the midnight oil from Lunga. We have our finger on the pulse of the counting process. Zainab, tell us what you have. Vipi, ongea Zainab.
Naam, Tom, kama ulivyotaja ni kweli na ripotia kutoka eneo la Lunga ambapo hapa sasa ndicho kitovu kikuu ambapo zile kura zote kutoka vituo 148 vya kupigia kura katika eneo bunge hili
Pole sana Zainab pale akiwa Lunga, and that's what tulikuwa tunaongea about, ya kwamba unajua sometimes technology can anyway, that's why there's the manual backup, and I want to bring in our backup. Doreen, did the lead of the leads answer you? Answer your question.
He's observed. He's seen what is happening in that area.
Actually, he said that he knows it's the biggest slum, and he went there.
And he's aware. And he's aware, you know.
Aware, yeah.
So that also just makes, his title, lead of the leads. No, it makes sense. We now
if
see
you're
why.
scared observing the real people of Kenya, then why you are here as an observer?
Good point.
Choose another country and go safe.
Good point.
Go to Europe.
Good point.
Fine.
What do you have us?
Okay, I just need to remind our viewers of some figures. Remember that as of 5:45 p.m., going by what IEBC had announced at that time, we were at 56.7% voter turnout. That amounts to about 12 million voter turnout. Actually, as of 2017, we were slightly above 15 million. So even as, these figures continue trickling in, probably we're expecting to see, these numbers changing over time. And also, when you look at 2017 and 2022, in respect to, the registered voters, so to speak, the number increased by 2.5 million voters. So clearly, it's a good thing, given the fact that we've over time talked about voter apathy, the issues leading to that, not wanting to vote, so to speak. But at least when you see that increase, it's a good thing, because then we are seeing Kenyans, and particularly the young folks, seeing that they form a majority of our population, just exercising their democratic right. But away from that, let's come back to the figures. We have said over time, this night, up until we see results announced, it's all about numbers. So that's what we are going to just be doing for you, giving you bit by bit of what is coming in, detail by detail, trying to elucidate that as much as we can. So let's come to one of those counties that we haven't really touched on. That should be Bungoma County. That is one of those counties in the western region. But before we get there, let's look at how these figures have changed over time. Now we are talking about 27,052. That is 55.99%. Again, remember, these are just provincial results. I won't get tired of reminding you this, because knowing Kenyans and sometimes how we could be anxious, it's just important that I keep telling you that these are specifically provincial results. And also, as media, we are not mandated to announce anything. We're just within the bounds of tallying as it was announced by IEBC, given the fact that IEBC said that we could also equally tally the results. So this is basically what we are doing there. Away from that, coming in next is Raila Odinga. Still looks like things are just the same as how it was. Ruto taking the lead, particularly as of now, in the results that we have, provincial results, so to speak. Raila Odinga comes in second at 20,893, which amounts to 43.25% there. Wajakoya still maintains, so to speak, that percentage of 0.51%, total of 247 votes. And coming in, last there is David Mwaure of the Agano Party at 0.25%, exactly 120 votes. I would remind you again, this figures or numbers are subject to change, and they will change over time. So when you see something change, don't get surprised. It's just basically what is expected. But let's come to one of those counties, because also as we're looking at the numbers, we're not just sticking to what we have on the provincial results. We're also trying to make comparisons in respect to 2013, 2017, looking at how things shifted, the matrix therein. And this is also what we want to look at. That is Bungoma County. But before we get to do that, we're coming there in a bit. But before then, Tom.
Oh yeah, thanks for that update. And just a quick reminder that the reported forms that have come in, Form 34A, remember 34A, extremely critical. 34,312 out of the expected 46,229. In terms of percentage, means that we have done 74%. So just slightly above 25%, 26% there about to go. And of course, at the tallying center, Chebukati, the country's returning officer, verifying all those forms, and our panelists, expressing joy at the speed at which those numbers are trickling in. But let's take you to Mombasa, where Ann Buru has been holding fort for us. And there you are. I don't know, weather was also a factor in this election. It's been very cold in Nairobi. I don't know how Mombasa is. Give us an update, and also remember to tell us whether it's hot or cold.
Okay, good evening to you. Good evening to you, Tom Boya from Broadcasting House. And Mombasa is quite chilly right now in the evening. It's been rainy and sunny during the day, but we thank God the day is over. People have casted their votes. And right now I'm coming live to you from the National Industrial Training Authority, which is Nyali Tallying Center, which is in Mombasa County, that is. And this Nyali constituency has 124,253 pre-registered voters, and 195 polling stations. Today has been really eventful for Nyali constituents members, that is, the residents of Nyali constituency, because they were exercising their constitutional rights that is happening in the whole country, having had general elections today. And the voter turnout has not been that much. It has been less than 50%, according to the returning officer in Mombasa, in the tallying center in Nyali constituency. So compared to 2017, the turnout has been a bit low, which is what has been happening today. But during the day, we've had a few hitches here and there in Kongoya tallying center. There's been a bit of confrontation between the incumbent, Muhammad Ali, and Said Abdallah, who is ODM candidate. But all this has been resolved, and right now everything has been calm from then till now. And right now we're waiting for the tallies from different polling stations. And so far, according to what we've had on that board, we see that this tallying center has received 161 the results from their polling stations, that is 161 from the 195 the centers that have been streaming in the results, that is. So right now I'll be joined by the returning officer of Nyali constituency, who's just going to give us a brief of how the day has been and the numbers and how people have been voting throughout the day. Karibu sana on set. You'll begin with your names and then you'll tell us how the day has been so far.
My name is John Oletaiswa. I am the returning officer for Nyali constituency. The day has been okay, with only a few incidents in the morning whereby the machines were, a few machines had problems in terms of opening, or otherwise everything else was not bad in terms of the process, and I can hear some of them were commenting that it went well.
Maybe you could tell us the voter turnout, how has it been?
The voter turnout has not been very good, but so far it was around 45 for the station that we got the reports. But we are still waiting to get the response from the other side that we can do the average. Yeah.
Maybe has there been any hitches during the day? Because we've seen that there's been a bit of commotion in Kongoya. Maybe how did you go about it? And because we've also seen the voter turnout, like you said, has been very low. How has it been?
It was okay, but the commotion that was in Kongoya was also, it was just an issue of some voters. That is because of it was not an issue concerning our teams, but it was an issue of supporters also still wanting to show their might in terms of their stronghold. Yeah.
Maybe you could tell us also how many wards we have in Nyali constituency.
We have 5 wards, that is Kasarani, Freetown, Kongoya, and Mukomani, yeah, and Kasarani also, yeah, Kasarani.
The results have been trickling in. Maybe you could tell us about the results that you've received so far.
So far, we have received 168 results for the presidential in terms of the ones that are being sent. We are still remaining for some stations that we have not yet received them, but we hope maybe they are also still finishing the process, because there were some stations that began the process quite late in the morning. Yes.
As you've heard, Tomboya, the day has been smooth. Maybe if there's anything else you'd want me to elaborate more about the day, but Nyali constituency has been a bit calm. Back to you, Tomboya.
Thank you, our reporter there, Ann Buru, keeping an eye for us on events as they unfold, the counting process at the coastal town of Mombasa. Of course, we'll be getting back to you. But before I get back to my panelists, I just want to bring in our reporter who's holding fort at the Nav Center, that's in Bomas of Kenya, Ben Troy Njue. Ben, if you can hear me, what do you have for us? A little while ago, we saw the IEBC chair give a presser. What do we have for us now?
Thank you so much, Tom Boya, back at the Broadcasting House. And earlier on, you talked about banning the midnight oil. I can tell you, here at the Bomas, we do need that oil because it's quite cold and chilly. And we'll be crunching the numbers and we'll be here. It's going to be a long night, but for a good reason. We're putting into perspective around 6.5 hours after the polls closed, after a largely smooth exercise. Now it is the time to get the numbers. And to help us dissect that, we have on my immediate left, we have Dr. Churchill Saoke, who is a leadership and governance expert and also a lecturer at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. And also we have another doctor. We have Dr. Charles Mbogwa, who is also a leadership and governance expert. I will be engaging my panel right here, but we also have my colleague Regina Manyara is at the Uchaguzi Hall, where we are getting a brief each and every time by IEBC in regards to the just concluded polls. And now we are crossing over. Regina, if you can hear me, kindly bring us up to speed with the latest.
Indeed, this is just a sneak peek into how the Uchaguzi Hall here at the National Tallying Center, Bomas of Kenya, is looking like. A bit of entertainment at the background, and we're seeing various stakeholders, including representatives from various political parties, are seated within the auditorium, as well as a section of observers. Earlier on, we had the IEBC commissioners conduct a prayer, thanking Kenyans for coming out in large numbers to participate in the August polls this morning, and saying that it was relatively a peaceful exercise. Now, what you're seeing at the background is what the IEBC is displaying on its portal, and not just the media can access it, but also members of the parliament. I mean, members of public, so to speak. Such to just give you a sneak peek, we're doing 79% of the Form 34As that have been scanned, and we're waiting any moment from now to have the respective ROs and POs walk into this auditorium to just have that particular count verified and announcements made. IEBC Chair also, Wafula Chebukati, mentioned that to Kenyans especially, that the results that have been announced at the various polling stations, and the number that we have is 46,229, are final, and that the National Tallying Center will serve as a verification center and announcement of the winners therein. This is how we're looking like, with a majority of counties having ROs having already scanned their Form 34As. The list at 27%, at 25% is the diaspora vote, where out of 27 polling stations, only 7 have managed to scan their Form 34As. Maybe we think it's because of the different time codes there. We also have only 58% of polling stations have been able to scan their Form 34As. Out of that makes it 129 polling stations out of 219. Now, information getting to us is that even before these particular votes have been authenticated, or rather verified here at the National Tallying Center, we have a few candidates who have conceded defeat, and I'm talking about what has happened in Kiambu County. Now, Kiambu County happens to have among the top or rather the most numbers of voters after Nairobi. Nairobi having 3.4 million Kenyans who had expressed interest by registering as voters, 2.4 million. Kiambu has 1.2 million registered voters. And even before the IEBC gets to verify and announce the winners in the various seats, we understand that Member of Parliament Gatondo South Moses Kuria there of Chama Chakazi Party, who was eyeing the gubernatorial seat, has conceded defeat. Now back to you, Troy. Let's talk about the numbers vis-a-vis the voter turnout that we saw early this morning, with some of our reporters on ground indicating that the voter turnout was not as expected. Is this going to change the tide? Let's have that conversation. Over to you, Troy.
Thank you so much, Regina Manyara. And perhaps to fortify what IEBC chair there talked about is that the result at the tallying center will be the final result. And talking about tallying center, we are now joined by our very own Caro Njenga, who is in Muranga. Actually, she is in Muranga at the county tallying center. Caro Njenga.
Great. Good evening to Ben and Jure. Exactly as you've said, we are coming live to you from Muranga town. We are at the County Tallying Center. This is Technology Primary School, where tallying of votes, that is the gubernatorial, the senatorial seat, and also the women rep seat will be conducted. And just to give you a brief of what has been happening during the day, I have been traversing throughout Muranga County, and I've been bringing you pictures of various candidates that are vying for the gubernatorial, senatorial seat, women rep seat, as well as the MP seat here in this county. And just to give you incidences that happened during the day, there were reported cases in Mathioya constituency per se, where the KIMS kit actually failed in a place called Kora, that is in Kamashari ward. There were other several incidences in various stations also there, which the county tallying center, or rather the county returning center, or rather officer rather, will tell me. There were also similar incidences in a place called Kiharu constituency, or that is something else the county returning officer will tell us. The county also witnessed a low voter turnout in the morning hours, but we saw this change during the afternoon, where we saw voter turnout actually go up. And we'll know how, in terms of percentage, what was the voter turnout here in this county. Also, most stations were closed by 5 p.m. and counting rather started immediately, but there were some incidences where maybe the polling stations was opened late in the hour, like it was late by about 30 or 40 minutes, and the IEBC officials, of course, allowed those, if it was late by 30 minutes, of course, they had to extend the time in the evening to allow voters to vote. Something else is that the counting of votes have now commenced, as I had earlier on said, and winners will be announced at their respective polling stations. That is for Member of Parliament, that is at the constituency level, and also for the member of the county assembly. Something else is that the presidential elections result will be relayed directly to where you are, that is Bomas of Kenya, and we'll get to know which each polling station, what the presidential candidates have garnered here in Muranga County. And now joining us is Saumu Omar Chilchil, who is a county returning officer, just to give us a brief and to tell us how the day has been, as well as to clarify some of the incidences that were witnessed in this county. Though the voting actually here was smooth, there was no incidences per se, but then again, the failure of the KIMS kit and also issues to do with network failure did aggravate some of, or rather did come out big here in Muranga County. That is some of the stations. Now, Chilchil, maybe you can join me here, and maybe you can start by sharing with us how the day was for all the IEBC officials.
Today in Muranga County, we started voting at 6 a.m. in the morning. We had a few stations that started late, and the POs, the presiding officers, were able to compensate the time that lost, since they started a little bit late. We have 1,189 registration centers, polling stations, and indeed there was a low voter turnout. We experienced a little delays in terms of the KIMS, but this was due because some areas we had elderly who their biometrics were not able to be identified, and also for the T picking zones, their biometrics are not very clear. Yes.
So this was happening in which ward, if I may ask?
It is in Mathioya. We had a few polling stations, and mostly it's in Mathioya and Kigumo.
Okay.
Yes.
Apart from network failure and also the topography of the region, maybe what are some of the other challenges you experienced here in Muranga County?
I think overall we had planned well. The materials arrived on time. So in terms of the logistics, we were on point. The voter turnout is where we saw a slow pace where the voters came in late. Most of them did not come very early. Probably they had other businesses to do first before coming to the polling stations. But overall, it's almost 60% an average. We are yet to get the full percentage for Muranga County. Okay. Yes.
Well, the areas that the KIEMS kit failed, maybe what steps did you take as IEBC?
There were only 2 where it failed and it was replaced immediately. One was the SD card that was replaced and voting continued, and another one was replaced. The others were just where a machine was a bit slow, but it didn't fail. What we did was we talked to the voters so that they were patient and be able to go the process, because we have the biometric identification, the alphanumeric identification, and also there's the validation with KIEMS supervisor mode.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe from the constituency level and from the polling stations, maybe you can tell us whether there's some the tallying of votes. How far are you?
By 8, most of our polling stations had closed and counting had started, because at 5 they closed, but there are a number of voters who are on the queue who are allowed to vote. So by 8, counting had started. As at a few hours ago, Gatanga had received the first presiding officer who has remitted his forms, and in Kiharu we had the zones polling station submitted their results. Yeah. Okay. So we are hopeful that as the night goes, the POs will be submitting their results. Yeah.
Okay. We can see there's no activity going on here at the County Tallying Center. Maybe you can tell us when do we see a beehive of activities right here at the county?
First, we have to wait for the constituency tallying center to tally the results for the 6 elections, and that means we are hoping that tomorrow, when all the presiding officers would have submitted their results to the constituency tallying center, then the returning officers will come with the gubernatorial, senatorial, and county women representative results to our tallying center, and that is where we begin our results.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that has been Saumu Churchill. She is the county returning officer for Muranga County, as well as the manager for county elections at IEBC, talking to us about some of the hitches that were experienced during the day here in Muranga County, as well as the steps they took once some of these challenges they experienced here in this county. Ben Troy, maybe if you have anything you need to ask, you can go ahead.
Yes, Carol, before you go, we are seeing 81% of Form 34A in Muranga County have already been submitted at the IEBC tallying. National Tallying Center. Perhaps when can we expect 100%?
Well, as Churchill has already said, this voting, or rather tallying, is continuing happening here in various wards in Muranga County. So we're waiting to hear for them to be done. Then they take it to the constituency, the county constituency tallying center. Then from there, we'll come here to the county tallying center. And then from there, I can be able to tell you that we are at 100% of presenting this the 34A forms. Jue?
Thank you so much, Karon Jenga, live from Muranga, and they are talking to the county returning officer there on some of the challenges, and I think there have been quite many challenges when it comes to, of course, the voter identification and the transmission of some results. We are seeing some counties at 46%, where others are at over 80%. But back to you, gentlemen, looking at those statistics, IEBC, 6 hours, just 6 hours, they have been able to almost do 100% of all the Form 34A. And remember, it's actually one of the forms that made us go to the apex court in terms of the presidential petition. How are we doing on time?
Thank you very much. Once again, it's great to be here as Kenya decides. One of the key differences when you do a comparative analysis between transmission of results 2017 and 2022, and which you have alluded to in terms of Form 4A, is that in 2017, 11,000 unreported 34A forms were not captured as the results were announced by the presidential returning officer, who is the chairman of IEBC. And that was a few days after the elections. But what are we seeing today? What we are seeing today is quite interesting. Currently, we are at about 82%. The very first day during the poll. And that showcases transformational improvement as far as IEBC is concerned. And we are talking about the reported Form 34A. Because after that, the forms then must be brought physically to the tallying center. That is a requirement as far as the law is concerned. But looking at it from the perspective of 2017 and before then, we can actually say kudos to IEBC as far as that bit is concerned. Maybe in terms of what we saw as far as the Kim kits are concerned, we noted that we had 200 Kim kits that at one point malfunctioned. And that's just about 0.4% of the total number of Kim kits that were being used, 46,229. It's not really a failure that would be termed as catastrophic. But that notwithstanding, it's still a failure because bearing in mind what general elections mean to this country, it could result in perceptions even of electoral malpractices. You know, that's what I would put across at this point.
Indeed. Yeah. Before I bring you in, Churchill, News Justin Moses Kurias is talking about conceding defeat, although he hasn't mentioned any why he has conceded or why he is talking about conceding. But what we are seeing in Form 34A, as Doc has talked about, we are doing quite well, but it has always been, we've done the heavy lifting in terms of voting, but every time when it comes to the transmission and all the elections that have been challenged in the last 20 years, the 2002 was not disputed at the courts. It has always been in terms of the relaying of these results.
Absolutely, because you see, every examinations must be evaluated, and it's at the point of the results that you evaluate the process of an election. You get to know what really is the will of the people. You know what is the opinion of the people about who they want to lead them. So that's why it draws a lot of interest. That is really expected, and you know, it has been then the interest of every stakeholder in the election to come up with mechanisms of ensuring that the process of transmission is lean, it's credible, it's reliable, and it's fast. And I think these are some of the things that the Commission and many other stakeholders around the election in this country have been trying to grapple with, because you know, people have already voted very well, and as you have alluded to, people have already voted, you know, peacefully, very peacefully, gone home, and you know, people are on their televisions watching to the results. So it is at this stage that we cannot afford to, for purposes of the security of the nation, we cannot afford to mess up. And this is now where the technology come in very handy to make the process very lean. And you know, the whole question about trust is very important in such a process. And technology is something that does not know people. It only does what it has been instructed to do. So if the people who are around the technology are trustworthy enough, then it means that it gives that process the credibility it deserves, that then builds the confidence into the Commission. So the fact that within a time frame of about 6 hours we've been able to get this number of results being relayed at the tallying center is actually an advantage. It's part of building that trust, and you know, the key thing now that will be coming is if the results that are going to come are those that the same results that are reflected on the ground. And I think that is why the chairman indicated that the forms that are within the portal will have to be verified by the physical forms first, because they are trying to seal the loopholes that existed in the 2017 elections.
Indeed. And looking at what we witnessed today, the failure of some King's kits and the use of the manual voter register. Looking at Thursday, the High Court did talk about the use of the manual voter register in tandem with the biometrics. Yesterday, that is yesterday, because of course we are on Wednesday now. On Monday, the Court of Appeal talked about, yeah, let it be there, not the first, not going to be used as the first resort, but let it be there. But we've seen today we have used it. What does that mean? And could we expect that to be challenged? Because we already have 2 court orders as well in terms of how the electronics today failed in some instances. And we want a credible election.
A good one. We are coming from a very difficult past. And the changes you have seen, including the adoption of relevant technology, was informed by commissions, for example. But in particular, we saw we read what the Kreger report talked about. And so Kenya has been on a pathway of reforms. And among these reforms, we have seen electoral laws reforms. Very important. And so the hierarchical component that the Supreme Court pronounced itself on was very important. And may we not forget that what we have seen today is courtesy of the ruling by the Supreme Court and fidelity of IEBC to a certain extent to the Kenyan people and to the Kenyan law. So what then do we have? Justice Mugure pronounced herself, the High Court, stating that the two should be used together. That is the Kim's kit and the manual register. But one of the coalitions went to court, did an appeal, and a ruling which you have alluded to was then delivered. And then it gave a hierarchical order. Number 1, we must pick on the KM's kit. Number 2, alphanumeric, and then numeric. Then number 3, we have got the manual register. The question we need to ask ourselves is this: after that ruling was done, how quickly did IEBC adopt it as a lesson to the clerks who are out there, the returning officers who are out there, the presiding officers who are out there? Was any simulation done, despite earlier training, to bring them quick to speed in terms of what that hierarchical approach to the poll in terms of identification and voting are concerned? We know not whether that was done, but that would have been good. But then let's go back to asking ourselves, if then the manual register was used and the alphanumeric was not tested, although the Kim kits failed, was the end in regards to what we did justified? When you keep Kenyans in anxiety in this kind of a highly contested transition general election, you might start catalyzing mistrust, which Dr. Churchill has just talked about. This mistrust plus the anxiety can find narratives, propaganda, and disinformation to the extent that there is rigging. And this is enough to reach a point at a crescendo where some of our politicians and some of the idle minds and some of the followers would then take the law into their hands. So to that extent, then quickly moving to go to the manual register was important, on condition that that process, number 1, is verifiable. transparent, because that's core, secure in terms of how it was done, among other perspectives that were a requirement as far as that complementary system is concerned. A divity has been accepted in our laws. Then saying then that it reaches a threshold for what would be termed as litigation may have to wait in one way or the other. But bearing in mind the sensitivity of this and the fidelity of that manual register, because this is generated from the KIMS kit, then that decision by IEBC at that point was timely and were responding to an item, a complexity that may have taken us to our situation, in my view.
Churchill, you also want to add a voice on that. Could that be opening avenues for legal redress?
Well, you know, when you look at it from the perspective of uniformity of processes, then it could be, because now it depends on how somebody looks at it. And I think there is one issue that arose during the press, which and this was a question of, you know, when you are undertaking this kind of a national exercise, then whatever is done in Kakuma in the north needs to be done down in the coast, in south coast and west of Kenya and east of Kenya. The process needs to be extremely uniform. So the issues that are rising about heterogeneity of processes is something that could be raised, you know, and, you know, somebody says that, you know, well, the court had given direction as to how this was to be done. But because miscommunication and lack of proper structured communication to the people who were supposed to implement this, it resulted into variations in the implementation across the country. Then that, in that case, if somebody has evidence, he can raise litigation.
Doc,
yes,
the election mistrust that we always had in Kenya comes in when we have to transmit the results. We vote very peacefully without any queries, just a few hitches here and there, just like today. But when it comes to the transmission, so IEBC this time around said that media and even the political parties, if they want, they can follow up. They will have the Form 34As and they will ensure that they have their own tallying as well, but they're not supposed to declare, just to show you how credible they want these elections to be. And IEBC chair today also reminded in the last, around an hour ago, reminded that you can only tally, but you cannot declare these results.
Interesting. Again, an organization that lacks a culture of continuous learning and unlearning is bound to face extinction. But we've seen IEBC adopt, to a great extent, a culture of learning. Number two, it has adopted a culture of being a keynote listener. It's able to listen. It listened to the Supreme Court, then it listened to the High Court, it listened to the Court of Appeal. And so it also listened, number one, to the heartbeat of Kenyans. How do we vote? But we cannot tell who truly won. Because in the course of transmission, one or two unethical practices results in disenfranchisement of the electorate. So bearing in mind those bases of what I want now to put across, you realize that IEBC identified the role of building trustworthy relationships. With whom? With all the stakeholders, the electorate, the political class, and of course that includes all those who are vying for diverse seats, the media, so that during that complex process of transmission, we are not waiting only for IEBC. we are all in the first place having a system of homogeneity, as Doc has said, where we are tapping all these results from one common source. Who is the source? IABC systems. Who is getting it? All those who have got their tallying centers, so that we are then able to create trust of the process, trust of IEBC, and then a practice by the actors. You cannot declare, and you have to use the word, these are provisional results. So that then removed the suspicions that shrouded what would be termed as the transmission. Then the component also of verification, physical verification of the concurrence and therefore congruence of what we have on Form 34A and what was transmitted physically here is another part of then removing that particular sore component of mistrust. So for me, improving access to what would be termed as what is being transmitted across diverse actors, but tempering it and warning these are provisional in one way or the other, demystified, and therefore made each and every person feel that there is openness. Remember, this is part and parcel of inclusivity and transparency as far as the process is concerned.
Yes, that's it. And perhaps you will also add on that, but looking at some of the things that have come out of this election just a few hours after we have completed it, that there's need for a lot of voter education. Somebody who was 8 years old when Uhuru was taking government, today was voting, right? And in the next 5 years, somebody who is 13 years will be eligible to vote. But looking at all the agencies tasked with ensuring that there is democracy in the country, IEBC included, what can you say in regards to civic and voter education?
It's a nice question, Ben. You know, the question we must really ask ourselves as to whether the first timers really voted. I think it's one of the...
Wow, that's a good question. Where the first timers?
Because you see, when I looked at this election, I found the voices of the young people not really strong. They apparently, in many polling stations, the ages between 18 to 28 there was really minimal and insignificant. It is something really to reflect after the elections are over as to what could be happening, and with that demographic section of our country. But then the question is about, and I think this one you also had discussed with Doc just on the sidelines, about civic education, as you say. You know, for a long time, and this is not just happening in this election, the issues around civic education has always been left on the hands of the politicians to run with. That, you know what, this is your election. You are the one who is seeking votes. Go and mobilize your supporters to come and vote. And that's the wrong thinking. The thing should be that how can we be able to institutionalize the mind of a Kenyan to get to know that voting is a civic duty that should be driven by you and not the politician. The politician should only come to try to sway you on which direction to vote, and not for
on
you.
the electoral process.
Not on the electoral process. And I think this is a point where we have had a missing link, and the electoral commission and the election agencies sort of have left it that, you know what, our role is to create the electoral process in terms of having a way in which people can vote, and that's it. Whether they come to vote or not is not our business. And we ask a very simple but very moral question. If you have 22 million people who are registered voters, and out of the 22 million people, only 500,000 come to vote, you're still going to have a winner. But how legitimate is that winner in terms of forming a government that is well acceptable by the populace? So it creates a governance moral question. And I think this is something that really needs to be discussed. And the commission really needs to adopt mechanisms of progressively finding ways of engraving the question of civic education within the election process.
And perhaps you can add on that, because out of the 22.1 million, the youth were 3.84, around 4 million of the 22 million, yet they form bulk of the population. But first of all, hold the thought. Just first of all, cross over to Ruth Wamboi, who is currently on standby to give us a latest. All right, my director, Ben Kamuti, informs me that she is still not ready, but as she gets ready, perhaps you can dig in that. And also, IEBC, we have seen IEBC have advertisement posters on the electoral process. Have they exhausted? Have they reached to everyone? Because, of course, we have people with disabilities as well. And the voter simulation exercise. You should have